Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, August 13th, 2024 meeting of the Ayer Planning Board. This meeting hearing of the Ayer Planning Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID number 833-6548-0732 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Danny Ruiz, Town Planner, at druiz@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 144 prior to the meeting. First item of business regarding the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion on revisions or anything otherwise? No? Hearing none? I'll start taking Ken.
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan? Chair votes aye. It's unanimous. The first item is a public hearing for 0 Bishop Street and 0 Park Street, New England Power. I'd like to invite the representatives of the applicant to come to the table, and I want to read the opening public hearing notice. This is the public hearing notice for Site Plan Special Permit and Stormwater. The Ayer Planning Board will be conducting a hybrid public hearing at 6:15 p.m. on Tuesday, August 13, 2024, in the first floor meeting room at Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, to consider the site plan special permit and stormwater application submitted by New England Power Company for the properties located at 0 Bishop Road and 0 Park Street, map 19, parcels 10, 11, and 12. The applicant is proposing improvements to the existing electric substation known as Ayer Substation Number 201. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for the proposed light fixtures to exceed the maximum allowed height of 15 feet. The applicant is also seeking a stormwater permit for a major project under the stormwater bylaw in coordination with the site plan review. For more information, please contact the Ayer Planning Office at 978-772-8220, extension 144, or planning@ayer.ma.us. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for 0 Bishop Street and 0 Park Street?
So moved.
Seconded.
Got a second from Julie. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ken, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Welcome. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to ask the town planner just to set up the context, then I'm going to turn the meeting to you. You guys actually introduce yourself by name and who you represent. And I'm going to ask you to do your narrative, what this is about, and walk us through. And then we'll have opportunity for questions, and we'll discuss next steps about what we need to move this further along. Danny?
All right. So this project is at the corner of Bishop and Park Street, right just before the railroad tracks before the cemetery. The project is site plan review. There's also a special permit component for the height of the lights, and there's a major stormwater management permit component to this due to the expansion of the impervious area and the trigger for a major stormwater management permit. The applicants did come before, I believe, in March of 2023 to a land use meeting here, just to give an initial presentation to the land use group, and then we hadn't heard for a while, and then recently they came with a submission that you see before us. They will be going before the Conservation Commission when they make their submission for an NOI. So that is one other open item that they will be making to Conservation.
Has that date been set already? No, that date hasn't been established yet? Okay.
And there were some review letters, one from the DPW, one from myself, And then there was one from the conservation agent, Heather. And then fire did give a comment letter, but no comments.
Okay, great. Hey, gentlemen, if you'd introduce yourselves and then take it from there.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith, and I'm the outside land use counsel for National Grid, in this case, the applicant, New England Power Company.
Thank you, Joshua.
Brian Wentworth, the civil engineer, BSC Group representing Newton Power.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask you to speak up a little louder when you... Sure. Thank you, sir.
Great. So, well, Danny gave a good overview of the project, and I'm assuming to some extent folks around the table here at least, and maybe some in the audience, are familiar with the site generally.
Yes.
This is within a general business zoning district, and it is, as Danny mentioned, at the corner. It's a corner lot at the corner of Bishop Road and Park Street. This is a pre-existing substation, goes back many, many decades. We did meet with various town officials. I think you were not
This
here
was
at that
before I was
time.
here.
Okay, right. So we had met with the previous planner, Danny's predecessor, as well as the building commissioner, and maybe one other individual to discuss the project. Like a lot of these National Grid projects go, sometimes they go in fits and starts in terms of getting funding internally and et cetera. So, and finalization of design. So we were able to get this project going in terms of making a filing, as Danny mentioned. There are various local permits that are required, site plan review, stormwater permit, as well as a special permit in connection with the lighting that's proposed. The local bylaw includes a special permit to the extent that lighting exceeds 15 feet, which the proposed lighting at the site will be approximately 35 feet in height, which is similar to some of the lighting that is already existing at the site. Generally speaking, and as you can see here, this is an aerial depiction of the site, a little bit zoomed out. But it's important to see that the surrounding context, the neighborhood, it's a kind of a mix between unimproved lots, as well as to the north, you can see there's a pretty significant industrial area, businesses, mix of businesses across the street. That's across Park Street.
And I assume these guys are pretty quiet.
Pretty quiet, yes, as far as I know. That's a cemetery to the left. There are railroad tracks to the south, and then obviously to the east there you can see quite a big, large swath of unimproved woodlands. And so the expansion project, which is really what this is about. I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll here. This is a little bit more zoomed in depiction
You
aerial.
might want to just zoom out a little at the top. The zoom out button at the top, the 67%.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just so that.
Mine's there.
Right-handed. I know. You're trying left-handed. It was impressive.
Okay. So here's the depiction of the site. And again, just to get your bearings, along the top is Park Street, and then along the left is Bishop Road. And so the expansion generally is going to be a few feet towards Park Street and a few feet towards Bishop Road. There are some existing mature trees that are along Bishop Road that will have to be removed. Although, as you can see, the cursor that Brian is showing there on the left, there will be quite a substantial amount of new non-deciduous plantings or evergreens that will be planted right along Bishop Road. And we have another slide that shows the general area of where the removal and new plantings will occur. So the fencing is going to be expanded, as I said, about 20 to 25 feet in both directions, towards Park Street and then towards Bishop Road. This will allow for, you could see a bit of an overlay here of the various equipment, typical substation equipment, transformers, circuit breakers, switches. There'll be some new H-frame structures that will be added, as well as in that sort of center part, this long rectangular shaped object there, that is the new control house. So that'll be about 2,200 square feet in size, and again, will house various equipment necessary. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, Councilor, just quickly, What's the motivation here? I mean, why? What's the why here? Is it increased capacity? What's driving this?
Generally speaking, as you can imagine, the company owns and operates thousands of these types of substations of various sizes, some bulk power substations, some smaller. This is sort of kind of a mid-range level. There's 115 kV as well as 69 kV and I believe 13 kV circuits that are coming in and out of this substation. As I said at the beginning, this substation goes back decades.
Yep.
I think it's well over 50 years in age. Some of the equipment, not all of it, is quite that old, but a lot of it, yes, it's very durable. However, it does run its useful life. And
Got it.
much of the equipment here needs to be modernized and upgraded. So it's all about reliability.
Gotcha.
And it's for the benefit of the town. I'll remind the board, we were before this board about 2 years ago in connection with Sandy Pond, which is another substation site. And so there was an expansion there, very similar to what's happening here. So upgrading of the equipment, upgrading of what's technically a building, the only building, the control house, about 2,200 square feet. The expansion will also allow for the security fencing to be upgraded to Grid's current standard, which is 8 feet plus 1 foot of barbed wire, so a total of 9 feet. That is their standard security fencing height, chain link in nature. And so that will also be another upgrade for security purposes.
Is it like the barbed wire that like comes out at angles, just the wire? It's not the concertina stuff, right? It's just the barb?
That's correct. I believe 3-strand.
The 3-strand, it's at an angle.
Gotcha.
Strand.
Yeah, not
Good.
the circular one.
Right.
Yep.
Not prism type.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the project in a nutshell. Brian, do you want to give a little more insight?
I think, you hit most of the high points here. It's really just, it does involve expansion of the fence to the north and to the west here. The expansion does include about 3,500 feet of wetland fill here. Danny mentioned that we'll be filing an NOI to discuss with the Conservation Commission that wetland fill. As required, it's not shown on this plan. It is included in the site plans that were submitted, but there is a wetland replication that's required and is planned for this area here, next to the existing stream and wetland here. Anything else? We mentioned the stormwater permit. Stormwater is generally being handled by the yard stone that is, standard for a electrical substation. And with this kind of electrical substations in general, there's not a lot of additional impervious area that's added, so it's not a significant increase in peak flows or change to the hydrology. So the additional stone that's being added, and it's a clean 3/4 inch gravel that has a lot of void space and a lot of detention volume naturally. So the design and the hydrology calculations that are included in the stormwater report that was submitted take advantage of that and show that, demonstrate the compliance with the stormwater standards just by nature of the gravel absorbing the
That
runoff.
control house, is that just for equipment, or is there, will there be human beings in it as people?
There certainly will be equipment in it, and if you were to ask a substation engineer at Grid, they'll say that this is actually equipment, switchgear
Yeah.
equipment. A human can enter the building, therefore it is technically a building and does require a building permit.
Gotcha.
It wouldn't be considered anyone's office, though. It's not,
Right.
Nobody's working there,
Right.
day to day.
Thank you.
So happy to answer any other questions.
Oh, that's good. So the process is, so for those who are attending, the process, first the board goes around for questions, and then we open it up to the public. So you will have a chance, sir. Who wants to lead off with questions? Notice all eyes turn to Ken, but I didn't mean to put pressure on you. but I have if you want to go first, I have just a
Did you
few.
guys, have you looked at the comments from the departments already?
Yes.
DPW and whatnot?
Yep, yeah, we're
There's some
evaluating.
consistency in the one that the DPW asked and Danny asked regarding
Yes.
entrance driveway. Are you
Yeah.
going to take another look at that, or must it line up with that spot?
We are, we've discussed with the project team, and the engineers on board have assured me that they definitely need that for at least construction, and they'd like to have it as a permanent entrance. It will be considered a secondary entrance. The existing entrance to the site will still be used as the primary entrance. There's not going to be an increase in traffic to the
Yeah,
substation
we know
following
that.
construction, so. But for future maintenance and projects, and just accessibility to get to the, yep, that's the new entrance, thank you.
So to expand on that, there is an existing entry point, which is located here.
Yep.
Right.
Down here along Bishop Road. So there's no changes with respect to this entry point. This is the new entry point, which would be an additional entry point. And as Brian noted, it will primarily be with respect to serving construction activities in connection with this project. This site is already, I'll repeat it again, this is an unmanned substation to begin with. So even the main entry point here, this is not a high traffic site at all. Here, certainly during construction activities and from very infrequent time to time, the company may need to have larger vehicles, specialized vehicles that they need to access the site. If large equipment needs to be swapped out, usually would be the case. So as much as this main entry point will be pretty infrequently used because this is an unmanned substation, this one that the client is proposing would be even less used. And I will point out that I think one of the comments from DPW was the distance from where this entry point is in relation to where the intersection is of the two streets. This is a pretty significant distance,
So
and
About 100 feet over.
about 100 feet. So we don't feel that the combination of it not being frequently trafficked, but also, or accessed, plus the pretty significant distance from the intersection, we feel there's no safety issue.
Am I misunderstanding on that distance?
No, that's what the DPW and myself discussed about that. That's how we feel. They haven't had a chance to actually respond to the comments and talk to DPW, so
Yeah, okay.
that's going to happen after these meetings.
So, Joshua, is this your work, the boat's work?
That's correct. It's the
Nice-
team's work.
Very nice, high-quality piece of work, so thank you for that application.
Absolutely.
The application has got to be one of the best we've ever seen.
It is true. I did notice that that
I'll
the
let my kids
application
know.
included detailed answers. Hold on, Josh. Just for the record about why we think it's good for anyone who's watching because they're about to submit an application. One of the reasons that's excellent is that because you provided detailed, informative answers to the question, why does this meet all the concerns that we have under a site plan review? And under each section of the bylaw, you had a paragraph saying exactly why this fits. So that's, I don't know if that's what Ken was thinking of, but that's what I saw that I admired, so thank you.
One of the comments, well, I guess the DPW, should we talk about the sewer and water? And does this building have any facilities in it, the new building? But for,
The new building, no, is not.
okay, so the only, you do have facilities in the existing building?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So there's no
There's an
change there? Just
existing-
going to keep that, whatever that is?
Yeah, there's an existing septic system in the yard that services the restroom and the existing control building. It seems to be functioning fine. It is maintained periodically. We talked to the operations supervisor for this
Okay.
substation, so.
There was a comment about that. They're probably going to not need any new tie-ins if they're heavy.
Yeah, so based on my discussion with him, they're not going to be changing anything with the septic. There's not going to be a bathroom in this new proposed, so there's no real need to change anything on that. Obviously they're going to have to respond to the DPW's comment and, TPW at that point will, they'll discuss with them. But I'm okay with them leaving it as it is.
Are we going to have a comprehensive list of waivers here? Because
I was wondering.
In discussion with Jonathan about this, there are some waivers that they are requesting
Right.
on here. But I guess more extensively, yes, there may need to be some additional waivers now that I've talked to Jonathan and just reviewing that. There may be some additional waivers, and I'll get you a list of the ones that you are, because as you went through your the checklist when you went in here, you said that yes, there were going to be some, but we will require the reasonings behind each of them in a letter format, just so that when the board does end up voting on it, we have the reasonings for the decision as well. So it's just some additional write-up that I'll send over to you guys.
Sure.
is there anybody here from National Grid right now, tonight?
No.
Or not with you? No?
We're both outside consultants.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please. I'm sorry, Nathan, I was just looking at my notes. Go ahead. You go,
I was
Nathan,
also
please
making
take it.
sure Ken was done. I know you're going to go into the reclamation area probably in much more detail with the Conservation Commission. So don't need a lot of detail, but more, how is it going to change from the existing, as far as, again, about view coming around that corner, that intersection? How will that differ from the existing condition today to the post condition, presuming that goes through?
It's a good question. I would say, and this is also, this may be redesigned when we revise, just based on the requirements from the Concom and the discussion with the Concom. So, but I do believe the vegetation along the street will not be impacted by this. There should be some, and I believe there's some larger vegetation and trees along that corner that shouldn't be impacted by it. So it should be kind of tucked behind that, if you will.
So would you say the sight lines will be the same or better?
It should not be significantly
Not worse.
impacted.
Yeah. And just for people's edification here, this is a street view depiction from not Brook Street, Bishop Road. And so this line here, this segment of these trees here will need to be removed in order to accommodate the expansion for the portion of the substation fencing that's going to push towards Bishop Road. However, as I said, and as shown on the plans, there will be significant new plantings that will be added here in place of this to still be able to provide that visual buffer.
Could you, sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead, Ken.
I had not, you brought that up, I was curious. To you, would a cloud on the drawing indicate where the clearing would be rather than just you telling us on the screen?
I believe it's on the
I'm looking
site
for the note,
preparation
yeah.
plan.
Is it there?
C1 or C2.
C2?
Keep going a little more. Probably C1. Yeah, you can see there's a short line on the kind of southern side of the expansion area. Yep, right there.
Okay, right.
Which indicates, generally where the trees are going to come down, so.
So you're looking at C1 or C2?
Yep. C1. Yep.
So I see something that says clear and grub and remove all stumps, blah, blah, blah. Needed to accommodate proposed work. But it doesn't, it's just pointing at one spot. It's not like clouded in to the extent.
Yeah, there is an existing, it's a little, it's faded, screened back, but there is an existing tree line there that it connects to, so it's essentially, everything in that area.
So you're saying that
I can take another look at
the
it.
print we got didn't show the background is what you're getting at. It's not clear here, it's pretty hard to see it.
I can take another look at it and see if there's a clearer way to represent that.
You good with that? I mean, I'd rather see the extent of what's going to be taken down.
Like a limit of work line?
Limit of work type thing for the clearing.
Sure.
And the other question that I had was on the replanting, where the note there says proposed vegetative screening doesn't indicate the height, unless I'm missing it on the planting list or something, like the height of
Yeah,
it.
so that was part, so the vegetation, the planting list has not been included.
Okay.
That was one of my questions. What was it that was going to be proposed there?
All right, cool.
Yeah, and we're evaluating that, and we'll include more detail on
So they're
it.
going to be like 12 to 15 feet high, something like that.
Yeah, we're still evaluating it, but, I mean, the existing substation has, you can see the pine trees, they're spaced out, they're not, they're mature pine trees, so there's not a lot of branches below the fence line, so, and I know, as Danny, as I discussed this morning, the National Grid has a little bit of concern over security. They want the general public to be able to see into the substation in case there's an unauthorized entry, and, they'd like, so.
Yeah, I get that.
They like to limit the screening, so,
Really want it
what we're considering,
That's why one of my questions was like about the slats into the chain link, and he did say like for security reasons they do not put those in.
right,
Right, because you don't want to provide concealment
right.
on purpose. That makes
Yeah,
a
they
lot
want
of
the
sense.
general public and, police force or anybody that's monitoring the substation to be able to see in there.
Yeah, that ties into something. There was, obviously a news item a couple of years ago. You remember there was an incident with a substation and there was a shooting. And there was some concern about the vulnerability of the transformers.
Everything,
Yeah, I mean, is that an issue in play here in terms of the security about?
everything's a big issue.
Well, security is always
Yeah,
of paramount concern. I'm familiar with that story. I think it was
Yeah.
North Carolina.
yeah.
But yes, this is why our water sources, our substation facilities, our generation sites, these could be targets for people that want to do us harm. So depending on the nature of what type of substation it is, National Grid will have varying degrees of security. And, but I will say that all of the substations, from distribution all the way up to the largest 345 kV substations, have they have monitoring 24/7, and if anything does happen, it goes back to their Troubleman remote center, and someone will be alerted. The local authorities will be alerted, and people will come to the site if something occurs.
Now, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
No, go ahead.
So the reason I asked about National Grid is, and I see Ms. Max in the audience, there's a project that's going on right now, there's new, I'm not sure the exact term you use for the stanchions, poles, whatever, right adjoining this site, going up the slope.
The transmission lines.
Was
yeah.
that did not require, that's simply maintenance, I guess, of under some category of maintenance for you guys. So it didn't require any kind of site plan review, is that what I was talking about?
Yeah, the building inspector is aware of what they were doing up there. They did have to get an RDA from conservation.
Okay,
but it did.
no, that's different.
It's different.
Yeah, that was like different RDA.
Yeah, you're talking about the one just past the.
I'm talking
on the
about going right
tracks?
up the slope where they just put in some brand-new galvanized.
Across the street.
Yeah, and I'm not, what's the correct name
oh.
for those? Tall poles, columns,
Towers, structures.
towers.
Yeah.
Right, but
A couple of new towers went in. up
You're
the
talking
slope.
about this way.
Yes, across.
Okay.
Yep, I'm-
Yeah,
And you actually put an access road in there, roughed a little access road in. So that's what, where does that fall in all this?
Typically, that type of infrastructure is considered exempt from zoning. So it's not like a substation that has sort of a defined fence line and enclosure with equipment, transmission lines, distribution lines, that type of infrastructure that's off-site, outside of the substations, are usually exempt from zoning.
Yeah, public.
Okay, so
It's
my-
public utility.
The only comment I have on that is, since we have no control, I think part of it's actually on this property.
So there
you're
is.
driving along,
Yeah,
I'm
there's
looking at-
some that's being done up here and in this area, right up here.
Right, but as they approach it, as they get to it, they have to drive along the perimeter of the back here. So I'm just thinking if there's any language we can put in, you do it automatically, that says we will replace it in kind to what it was before we disturb the area. so the truck traffic and the big machine traffic at least gets repaired. Oh, you just don't leave it there?
It's off. If it's off property, we don't have the authority to do that.
We can ask them. No, I think it is.
I know they do.
I think it might be right in the corner of this site. That's what I'm getting at. They're actually driving right through the back there.
Yeah, if you're talking about this,
No, I'm talking about, well, I'd have to look it on Google Maps right here, yeah. Well, you know where it is. You guys know where it is, right? It's right to the right to the north.
Yeah, behind the,
Right here, right on the transmission.
no, the other side.
Right there.
Cut it up.
yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They're upgrading up here. Yeah, so Charlie does know about it. He's already informed about it. He's been informed and he's been a part of it. And
All right, forget about it then. Okay, thank you.
Nathan, do you have any more?
I'm good, thank you.
Julie?
Oh, thank you.
Kathleen?
Quick question, in terms of, do you expect more change in lighting there
Couldn't hear
based
it.
on the new equipment? I don't know. if you-
Kathleen, I'm going to ask you to speak up so we can all hear you.
Sure. The question is, based on the kind of renovations and new equipment that's coming to the site, do you expect the lighting footprint to be much brighter?
there is on the plans. There is a lighting plan that they provided in the back. It's part of the actual site plan application. It's on this. It's part of this one. So if you go to the back portion of that packet, you'll see a plan right here.
I think I skimmed it. I was just asking for like a layperson's.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
10% brighter, like,
The short answer.
I don't know if you know
The
that.
short answer is no.
No,
There
okay.
will be new lighting. A lot of the lighting will be similar in nature, similar in height to what exists there today.
Okay.
But again, just similar, just like a lot of the other equipment that's there now, that's outdated, that's gone past its useful life. Some of the light support systems, same thing.
Okay.
And in fact, the lighting probably would illuminate less from the vantage point of if you're off the street looking at the substation. I believe, in fact, that at this substation, I don't think the lighting would be kept on at night. I think it would be dark. There's no lighting, I don't believe, that would be on unless someone comes to the site.
Okay.
And the light bulbs, so they're going to be 4,000 Kelvin, which is not very bright white, but it's going to be,
Yeah.
a little bit lower than that. So, and they're all downward sky compliant, so it shouldn't have any more of an impact than it currently, than what we see out there today.
Nathan, would you pull up a chair for this gentleman? So the gentleman in the blue shirt, if you would come up to the table and tell us your name and address and then whatever questions or comments you may have.
Sure thing. So my name is Dr. Peter Horaney. I reside at 75 Park Street. Could I get you to scroll just a bit up on the map? Oh, sure, right there. So I live in that residence right there, just across the street from the bank.
Okay, yep.
And so I look at this power station daily. We appreciate the power station. We thank you so much for all that you do. But I feel that this is my opportunity to ask you for something for me in that, or for the town at least, because if you scroll just a touch up, you can see that while on Bishop Road there's nice, I'm sorry, scroll down so that we can get, on Bishop Road there's a very nice cover of trees where the residences don't get to see all of how the sausage is made. But for our side, both the bank and us look at the business end of this, and I sent Danny, Mr. Ruiz, a presentation that I prepared for today's public hearing, and that's what I would like to bring up, is what I would like to request is that please consider putting in greenery. Is it okay if I point with the mouse?
Yeah, sure.
I would really like to request that put in greenery, so the same kind of cover you put in for Bishop Road, to put in the same thing along this side, so that both the bank and us can be covered from the view of the power station. Because I feel that this magnificent, necessary thing that we have here is actually going to reduce the resale value of my property if it keeps growing and growing, and there isn't sort of a kind of a concealment of sorts to prevent folks from being scared from the amount of wires, towers, poles, and just hardware that you have residing there.
Sorry, through the chair, could you point to where the bank is that you mentioned?
Right next to
Right.
it, right there.
So I spoke to the bank folks here, and they also would appreciate if this all could be happening behind the line of trees that you're putting into Bishop Road. Because I felt that Bishop Road was very well concealed. If we could have the same kind of concealment on
in the wetlands.
this side,
So
that would be ideal. I understand from what you said about safety and about the wires. I would like for you to put something in here too, but the world is full of compromises, and I think we need to make that here too. So I'm happy to listen to your argument on why not to put something under the wires, but I feel that something on this end all the way past this view here, so that it could come all the way up to this tree line, and I would like it to be evergreen, so that even in the winter, we don't have to necessarily have the view of that.
I can't put anything under the power lines.
Yeah, I don't think you can. So the first thing is, so I believe under the power lines, they cannot put any trees.
I understand. So I understand that, and so that's why, I was, in my dream of dreams, I had that in there, but I understand that this is not feasible. So we still want the power station to go, but do you think that beside the power station would be feasible?
I'm sorry, beside the power?
Right here.
The one thing that I would point out is that there is a wetland that wraps around that side of the substation. See the black with the dots?
I got you, but
Hatch and
there's
all there.
some space between that and the side of the parking lot here.
So, do you understand the concept of the buffer zone for the wetlands and whatnot? See the blue lines he's put on there?
Yep.
That first, between that blue line and the edge of the wetlands, that's
So no
called the
disturb.
no disturb zone. We have a member we want to comment,
Well,
Heather.
not to throw a wrench into that, planting within the buffer zone
Is
is
allowed.
exempt.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you can actually add vegetation.
And that's what I'm asking for.
Whether that vegetation is going to take is another story, especially with an evergreen. I don't believe there's many evergreens that like to sit in water 24/7.
I don't think I can think of any that can.
So
But it's a conversation for conservation to
It-
consider.
It's a conversation on that aspect that have to get looked into. Planting is exempt, but again, the type of vegetation that can be put in there is going to be the tricky part.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And so I think that, I'm just trying to reiterate that all I'm asking for is just for us to have some concealment, because I feel Bishop Road got some, but I feel like that we're sort of, we have grass is the level of
Is there a
concealment we
space
have.
between their lot line and the pavement?
Let me see.
There's a sidewalk there.
Exactly.
Can I see that really quickly?
And also, I've had a number of birds come out and almost hit my car from the wetland, so, I'm okay with that not happening all the time also, if they are sort of channeled away from that.
Well, we don't have jurisdiction over the bird flight.
No, I understand. No, I understand, but I was hoping that they wouldn't or they would reside in the trees, hopefully. Exactly. And so, yes,
Nice
that's,
work, Danny. Nice work. buddy.
Okay, so he's talking about this view.
exactly. Exactly, that's exactly.
there.
And like I said, I'm not against anything, I'm asking for your help.
I wonder if the,
Trees, the same trees that are on the end, I could live with just a row of trees just like that. But not planting today and it'd be a tree in 20 years, but like trees.
Is this vantage point pretty much in line with your house?
Yeah, that's it. That's my driveway. That's where I come out.
that's a duplex up on
That's
the-
right. Yeah.
I mean, from your house, obviously, that's not the issue.
It's the resale value of the property is the issue. Is that when people come and look at it, they're going to look at this view right here and they're going to say, "Is there something better?"
But you bought your house,
I understand, but the towers went up this past year.
but the substation was there.
But it was smaller and it's growing.
It's growing. No,
Okay.
And your point was also winter. Those trees in your
Yeah.
driveway are
Yeah.
bald in the winter.
Yeah, and so basically, I lived here for 4 years.
Sure.
This is the first certified mail I got or the second one. And I felt it means something.
Sure.
Having so many signatures in the letter, I should pay attention and ask questions, so.
Thank
that's
you.
what I-
So the applicant, I imagine, will take this under advisement, that, okay. Brian, I see you're taking notes, so, okay.
Yep, we've noted the comment for sure, and,
Any thoughts?
Josh and I can't really make the call, but we can discuss it with the team. The only other thing I would note is that typically when our wetland delineators go out to delineate the wetland, and I'm not exactly sure the extent of what they delineated, but they'll delineate on the side of the project, but not around. So that the border on that side right there, I'd have to double check to see if they actually delineated that or if that's part of the GIS wetland system that we usually merge it with that. So
I got you. But I felt that because there are trees already,
It's
the
interesting.
same trees should be
Maybe
able to be.
sorry, but if you take a look at that angle where that little point is there, it looks like the bank may control a portion of the land.
It does.
To your eye, it looks like it's not the bank's, but the lot line goes at an angle.
So this is.
So their driveway being straight, but there's a piece right there that's under the bank's control. It's not under this lot.
I got you.
Get
So
my drift?
the dot
Right, well, he's got
and the
the-
stripe.
That's
This is their property line.
That's their property line. That's this property line.
Exactly, but on this side where there's no wetland per se and just spreading the
Yep.
trees is what I'm asking for consideration.
Yeah.
That's all I can ask.
Well, to his point, I'm
You'd
wondering
be able
if
to
the
add
bank,
something from the bank.
ask the bank to. ask the-
Working with the bank, you may end up with
There-
getting what you want.
There's an area of land there that looks like it's outside the wetland that is on the bank's property.
So in your delineation, where it was 110, 111, 112, and it was, the lot on the left is full green in the little triangle, and the one on the right is bare land. And so all I'm asking for is that the little triangle lot you have on the left, to make that happen on the right.
I understand.
Yeah,
We understand, but I'm just saying.
You
that the-
understand what I just said, though, with respect to the bank's land, that,
So this right
Remember to
here,
point
this
it out.
area,
That's the
right
banks.
here,
That's where
that's
the
the
trees
banks, and that's the view that you're talking about.
There are already trees
That's
there.
no, that's this area up here.
It could be
Exactly.
some of it. yeah.
It could be some of it, it could be
Yeah,
more.
but I think that if we could get some in the way of the
You wanna
the
do more.
powers, that's really what I'm asking for, because I felt
And
that
so-
those,
So I can request one thing of the applicant based on this. Can you go back to can we ask the applicant to provide us with that line in the field staked off? So we can get a visual of what exactly he's talking about, because you look at an angle of, our view will change in the field.
Sure.
But if you can, we can ask them, I think they'd be willing to do it, to stake that line to the back of the parking lot of the bank, to that corner of the bank. So from the front corner of the lot to the pavement in the back.
Yeah.
Then we'll know what we're talking about. We won't be guessing when we stand there.
thank you. Yeah, I like facts.
And anticipation on, you said you wanted trees, not small trees. What do you mean
We have
by?
ice water, right? I gotta ask for what I want,
Yes,
and in the compromise, we'll get what we get.
what is it, what do you want is what I'm asking.
I
What-
don't wanna see it.
Yeah, and so that's unrealistic, so
understand.
what do you actually want that is realistic? Because it's impossible to plant a 20-foot tree.
Sure.
It's not realistic to happen.
I don't think
It's a
that's for
safety
him to
issue.
answer. I think that's a good question, but I think as they provide screening, correct me if I'm wrong.
I just want to make sure he understands that a 20-foot tree is not
Sure.
something that's
Sure. I understand.
that can be planted. It's just
I understand,
not.
but we're negotiating, so I'm not gonna come in with, I want a foot tall or something.
And I totally understand. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure everyone
Four little
understands.
pencil-sized trees that, hopefully in 20 years will become some.
I thought what I heard you say in the beginning is that it's similar to the screening on that side.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a pretty specific, if you can provide it on one side, could it be a conversation on the other side?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm asking for. And if you have to remove those trees on the other side, putting them over here is fine with me too.
So I think at this point, we'll let the representatives bring the proposal to the applicant
Yeah, it's National Grid.
and then to New England Power. And then at the next meeting that is scheduled for the continuance of the public hearing, we'll have an answer from them.
And I think they'll have to discuss that during conservation as well anyways.
Is there a
Exactly.
date for that?
They have not, no, because they haven't made the application just yet.
So I wasn't trying to be funny or anything.
No, I think it's good.
Just wanted to make sure
That's
that.
why
you
we
heard what I
get a hold of the abutters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a reason we
Thank
get
you.
it.
thank you. What was your name again?
said. Peter.
Peter, thanks.
And Ruth, did you want to come up to the table? Bring that chair back. I wasn't talking to you, Dr. Peter, I'm talking to Nathan.
This is just a little history of that substation.
Name, address,
I'm
please.
sorry, Bruce Bax Initial, 17 Taft Street in Ayer. A little bit of history for that substation. My grandfather came into town and looked at Chandler Machine Company, and he wanted to buy it, but the people would stand around without power for several hours a day. So he spoke to New England Electric, and he said, if you can provide me power, I'll make this into a real nice machine shop. And so they built that substation. And it's been increasing ever since. And now we own the land in back of it, across the railroad tracks from it. There. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is his name listed in the deed here?
So,
There's lots of old names, lots of old town names.
Yeah, if
so
you look at
let's
the
talk,
deed.
I'd like to talk about next steps. For instance, two things, site visit,
I think it would.
I think that would be appropriate. I think we should schedule a site visit. And I think we also need to talk about when we're going to continue the hearing. Would it be the very next meeting? If you, do you think that you'll be ready with comments, with responses to the comments at DPW, Danny, or?
My preference would be to have it at least get through conservation, at least one meeting.
Okay.
Because the plans could change.
that sound
Very
reasonable?
easily change because of all the wetland replication, how much wetlands they're filling in because of the flood zone. So I'd want to make sure that they get to at least one meeting through conservation.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Are you
Chair.
good with that?
Is that, have we filed?
We have not. We're targeting August 30th deadline, the submission deadline for meeting in September. I don't know what the date is. I know the filing deadline is August 30th. That's what we're targeting for the NOI.
So Joshua, did you call the timing on the next coming back to us?
Thank you.
Is that your responsibility?
Yes. We would, I mean, to the extent that the Conservation Commission has comments or changes to the plan with respect to the wetlands, I'm not sure that that would have much of a bearing on what this board, I think, has jurisdiction over, which is primarily what's happening within the yard and the expanded yard.
But the expanding yard is going within the wetlands, which may be impacted by their NOI, or at least what their view of how much is going within that wetland. And that's where and that's also going within the flood zone, so there's multiple impacts on that portion, which I think would be best for at least getting through one meeting through conservation.
What's the approximate timing? If we got on the first meeting,
Just so you know, so the conservation meets in September on the 12th. That is the Thursday after your meeting on September 10th. So in order to go through conservation for one meeting, you would have to continue this to your second meeting in September, which is the 24th, and the commission would meet that Thursday, the 26th. Because we're in the same week in September.
Want a motion?
I think there's.
First of all, I want them, is that acceptable? Does that work?
and I'm sorry, you're the conservation agent for the town? Well, some of this is just, is the timing. The company is looking to commence work before the end of the calendar year. This is not a typical developer where they can just hire contractors and go. There's a lot of process that needs to happen, further design, construction level design that needs to happen. None of that can happen until we have the entitlements in hand.
So these comments, and I understand where you're coming from, but these comments were sent on August 2nd. So you've had some time the comment was there for a while?
You're talking about the DPW?
No, my comment is
Your comment.
and from Conservation's comment that an NOI needed to be submitted. It's been there for now about 11, 12 days. So it's been out there.
Yeah.
We had to, they had to confirm the delineation out there last week.
Okay.
So they had, our eco folks had a little bit of work to do before they could file.
So to September 26th would be the next planning board meeting.
Is it 26th or 24th?
24th was the planning board.
24th.
26th was
we
the
just pulled up the
Concom. That same week.
September 24th. but-
September 12th is the Concom meeting.
Yep, I'm pulling up the schedule
Would
right
be
now.
at.
Right. So assuming that,
Yeah, the next meeting would be September 24th. That's the second meeting in
September 12th would be the first Conservation Commission meeting, September 12th.
All right. Can we get
So, I
anything
mean,
in
then,
motion
we're
so
looking
that we
at-
can actually do some
We
voting on
need,
the 24th?
we can get we just need the reasonings. We should be able to work.
Yeah, okay.
Which I'm going to provide them the ones that they need the reasonings for.
Before the 24th.
Oh, yeah.
So regarding the waivers, the town planner will get you the documentation necessary for you to respond with the reasonings that we, so that we, when we get those responses, then we'll be prepared, we can do votes and vote on the waivers and move that forward.
Yeah.
What else needs to be moved forward?
The special permit.
The special permit,
It's only the one.
it's only one, which is for the height.
And what do we need for that? Anything from them?
Finding and a vote.
We'll just need to go through the findings, through the special permit criteria.
Okay, and we'll have that for the 24th? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the stormwater?
We should, so I think, once they've addressed given us a response to comments,
Yep.
I think at the 24th, if not, depending on how conservation goes, we should be able to at least be at the point to vote on the waivers, vote on the special permit, and the stormwater management
That's what I
permit,
would hope.
and possibly site plan.
The waivers, Mr. Chair, we, as part of the town's form, there is a waiver, there's a table.
Yeah, and on the table it says that to please provide the reasonings on that as well.
Yeah, so we thought we did in
In the narrative?
responses.
In the narrative?
In the
Well,
actual
the narrative plus in the actual table, we provided responses.
I'll double check that again, and then
If you need something more,
Yeah.
just let us know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the
I'll
next
double
step.
check.
We'll double check and get back to you if we need more. We may not.
Yeah.
But just one way or the other, point is that we to be ready to minimize any further delay.
Yeah,
That's the whole point.
absolutely.
Okay.
In terms of the site visit, what's the board's thoughts with respect to scheduling that?
Yeah.
We've been doing them early on Thursday mornings, like 8 o'clock. Is that doable for your team, or like one of the Thursdays?
So this is an electric substation, so you would not be able to gain access within the yard, but you could go around the perimeter.
That's what we're looking at.
And we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Thursday
Definitely get around there.
morning.
So it would have to be next Thursday because I'd have to have already submitted the public notice for that.
Oh, yeah, right.
The legal
Can
notice.
I just ask, I thought we were talking about conscom because we were trying to walk after all that, but we don't care about the walk. The walk will just happen whenever, regardless of what conservation discusses?
Yeah. So I mean, we can, when we're out there, we're gonna want to look at the the property line to
Okay.
see what is
Will it be
possible.
staked for the tree line?
And that's what I think.
That's what Ken just asked for.
Yeah,
Tricky to do by next Thursday.
that we won't be able to stake it by then.
Well, we can't, not this Thursday, we're talking the week from this Thursday, right?
And I think he's saying that even that would
Even
be
that's
true
too soon?
Yeah, that
to
might
be able to get it.
Okay, so when's the next Thursday after that?
Can I suggest the 29th?
The 29th?
Can I be that bold?
Is that possible? Could you guys
The 29th.
get that staked?
That should be doable.
Okay.
Check with the team.
Yeah, with everybody else?
So we're looking at Thursday, August
August
29th
29th.
at 8 a.m. And these run 1/2 an hour, and I'm getting pretty strict about that for everyone's benefit and respect. So 8 to 8:30. And we could just meet right at the entrance there, right?
Yeah.
And there's plenty
Do
of
we
parking.
park at the bank? Well, how does one park to access this
Well,
site?
there's plenty of parking right on the street.
Better
There's
Bishop.
plenty of,
Yeah.
there's tons of parking there.
I would say just park somewhere along here.
Yeah, you'll see, that's plenty.
Yeah, I would park up
Ken and I
here.
have connections in the cemetery. That's part.
Plenty of parking.
Yeah, so I would park up here and then we can kind of walk this and,
Now, if those abutters
And then
show
walk
up,
around.
that's it. Yeah.
yeah, well.
Okay, so park on Bishop Road.
Alrighty?
Yeah,
Are
Thank you.
right.
we good?
So we just need to continue.
I just need a motion for continuance.
So moved.
No,
Well, we need
give
to-
or take.
I don't want to do it.
I'll do it then. I make a motion that we continue the public hearing to our, for 0 Bishop Street and 0 Park Street, New England Power Company, for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ken?
Yes?
Julie?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan? Aye. Chair says aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is the project status update. Right?
Yep.
Well,
Yeah. And then we have a presentation from Alicia. Thank you, everybody.
Great. So Stratton Hill, the applicant will be continuing, but we'll be reading that into the record at the next meeting. But we will be having a meeting with them, the DPW, myself, and their team to go through the peer review comments. The peer review will also be there. We have a meeting at the DPW on the 28th to go through the comments and try to iron out a lot of those, the comments that have been going back and forth, especially the bigger ones that the DPW has been having. So on the 28th, we'll have a meeting with them to discuss that. 42 Park Street, as you guys noticed, it's starting to move along again. There was a little bit of a lull period in there, but they've started to pick back up. Their intent is, once they've gotten to the point where most of the building is done and that they're going to be working on the inside, I think then the site work will be commencing so that there's no trucks coming in and out of there while they're trying to get the rest of the parking lot and the stormwater system done. We have 0 Scully Road will be coming before us at the next meeting. That is it's a small, like 3,000 square foot building. It's a fire sprinkler installation and monitoring building. So they'll be coming before us on the 27th. I'm trying to think of what else was there. The 1 Park Street, which is the old Santander, we should be having a site plan application for that coming soon. Myself and the DPW have a meeting, or we're trying to set up a meeting with the applicant to discuss the site, just because, I don't know if everyone knows, but there's going to be a redesign of the intersection at Park Street and Park and Main. They're looking at that. There's some 25% plans that are out there right now, and right now it's kind of scheduled to 2029.
Sorry, did you say 25% plans?
Yes, 25% design plans.
What's that technically?
So,
Preliminary.
yeah, this preliminary
okay.
plans basically. So the way they stage them at 25, 50, 75, and then 95% plans. So there's stages at which they design plans, and they'll get more in depth the more and more further they go.
Okay.
But the earlier versions, of which are the 25% plans, are used for the application for the TIP and through the TIF, and to get the project kind of moving along with MassDOT. And so that's kind of like where we're at right now.
is that being driven by our DPW or by the state?
Yes, well,
Or the state?
it's a state project. It's through the state, but the DPW will be involved heavily in that. So there's a discussion that the DPW, myself, and the property owners will need to discuss about, some of those entrances and some relocation of curbing and sidewalks and expansion of that. And then I'm trying to think if there was anything else coming up. I think that's it for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to welcome Alicia Hersey to the table. And the reason that she's here is I've asked her to be here because we often have a lot of conversations about housing and the relationship to planning, to zoning, housing to zoning and planning. And I thought it'd be wise to hear from our resident expert in Town Hall on housing to talk about that relationship. So welcome, Alicia, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thanks, guys. I know I come in and bring you numbers and things like that, but it's actually something that I've been thinking a lot about, and that is the relationship between community, housing, economics, and planning. And you guys actually do have a lot of role for your direct community on that. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. So this is, a lot of it's going to be discussion, but I'd like to bring numbers. I think numbers often bring you home. So how do I turn the page?
With the center scroller.
Oh, okay, there. Okay, how do I get rid of the, oh, I can't get rid of this.
You can move it down. You can move it down to the bottom. It
Yeah, you
floats.
can move
You
it.
click on the black in the top in the middle,
Okay.
and you can pull it down.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so the first point I want to make is that in the last 10 years, Boston, the Metro Boston area, not even just Massachusetts, but the Metro Boston area has created 275,000 new jobs. Okay, if you want to, can you see it, Jonathan?
Yes, I can.
Okay. But we've only created 108,000 homes. And that means that we're really short on housing. And what we're going to talk about today is how housing really affects our economy and other things. So according to Freddie Mac, the United States is deficient of 3.8 million housing units in the country. So what is this doing? Well, the Consumer Price Index, 45% of that is figured on housing and the shortage of housing. So it's driving our inflation. Everybody thinks it's, prices are going up and things like that, but the housing issue is really driving our inflation right now. And so that's why we're hearing from the state about the MBTA and all those kinds of things. Let me just, there we go. Okay, so these are the new housing numbers. The next page is the new housing numbers for how we figure LMI. LMI is the, low to moderate income of people. And I want you to take a reference of what it changed from 2023 to 2024. It went up almost around 10% across the board.
Yep.
Okay, so that's an inflation number. And inflation affects all of us. It affects our whole economy. It affects, the viability of our society. And so those are, I'm just trying to bring in, people think about housing, oh gee, it's a problem, it's expensive, all those things. But it's actually a very key component to our whole society and to our economy as well as our social structure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions on this? So, on the low income? So, housing in the middle class, and something that I've been talking about for a while is the loss of the middle class, and we're losing the middle class as we have a transfer of wealth.
I got a question, sir.
Yes.
We'll go back to the note on the bottom, if you don't mind, where it says
Okay.
low income. So 50% AMI, so it says area medium income. So are
Yes.
the columns that you're giving us here,
Is at 50%, low income is 50% AMI.
right, but nowhere on this page have you told us what the AMI is in this area.
Oh, no, I haven't, I'm sorry. And I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can get that for you, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't have to be sorry, I'm just a thought, that's all.
Well, 50%, so,
Double these numbers.
So if AMI was 150, just as an example.
well, so take for one person, AMI
about
is gonna,
104,000.
114,000
Yeah.
Is 100%.
is 100%.
Okay, so you're basically saying double these numbers and you'll get to the AMI.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
So
So,
not for moderate, just for low.
Yeah, right, because it says,
80%
that's what the
for
asterisk
moderate.
is, yeah, right.
yeah, okay. But there's actually a little bit of a formula involved in that. That's just an approximate. They actually kind of back into the numbers a little bit. Okay, so,
Thank you.
in 2024 middle class in the United States is defined as, oh, wait, let me change this for everybody, is defined at 51,000, from a range of 51,558 to 154,590. And that's the range of what constitute the middle class. In the middle class is our workforce. It's most of us. It's most of us, and it's our workforce, it's our community. Then we have it's broken up into three sections: the low income, middle class, and then the upper class. And I haven't put in proportions of how there are proportions out there. I could certainly get it for people about how this chart works. But we want to see people in that middle class, and working to become possibly in the upper class too. That's something that this country totally, supports. But to be a healthy society, and what we've had learned multiple times when we have our conferences and things like that, this town very much wants a diverse community. They talk about it all the time.
Agreed.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily just racially diverse. They want an income diverse community. And one of the things that we really found when we were doing the Future of Housing and Air last year is we started seeing the numbers that showed true gentrification. Okay? So stable housing not only creates a stable place for health, education, and the development of a strong middle class and the beginnings of wealth building. Okay? So, any questions on that? People understand. So the first in the United States, yes.
I do, actually. So for the second bullet, is this household gross income?
Yes.
And then I don't know, we probably don't have the number, but I'd be curious about that range for the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy metro, because I think we're part of that metro, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I don't
it'll
know
be
if you
higher.
have-
It's higher than that.
My guess is that
Yes.
it would be higher.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those numbers are probably figured, I can tell you. But just in general, Massachusetts middle class is ranged on that. Yeah, I can get you that number. For the Boston, Quincy area. I didn't want to overwhelm. So one of the things is in the next slide is about what's happening in Ayer. Okay? So this is the renters in Ayer, and this is the homeowners in Ayer. And what's interesting about this is much of our middle class is actually falling into the renter area.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's because as the homes have sold, look at this, they've sold, and we saw a lot of investment coming in at a much higher income bracket. And that really shows you gentrification. Okay, so as housing is selling, you've got less and less owned by the lower incomes and more. And renting isn't a horrible thing.
It sure isn't.
Renting it's the starter place where if you have a stable housing unit and you can afford it, it's the place where you start out, where you can build some wealth, where you can start moving forward. But the key points in that is that it has to be stable housing, and it has to be affordable. It can't be rent burdened. Anything that's rent burdened is when you're paying over 35% of your income for your housing.
And right now, that's actually extremely common.
Yes, actually, it's over 50%.
Right. It's like I don't know anyone who's only paying
Yes.
1/3.
Yes.
You mean the rents?
Rents.
Rents, or even
As a ratio
or
of
even a
income.
mortgage.
Or a mortgage.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane.
And many are paying over 50%.
So this, I really feel, this slide tells the story.
Yes, it does.
And I agree, and I also want to underline what you said earlier about what the people there want. Every town meeting I've attended, every charrette, your presentation less than a year ago went to housing. What did we hear over and over? Across the political spectrum, Everyone says, I don't want to see Ayer gentrified so that people like me can't afford to live here.
Yes. And you know what was very interesting? And when we did the preference, housing preference, where we had pictures of everything on the wall and people picked out more dense,
That's right.
smaller housing.
That's right.
Overall, time and time again. And it was by far the most popular. So they just want to see things that are affordable. They can make their bills. They can have their neighbors be like them.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So,
Alicia?
Yes.
I don't dispute your main point here, showing the difference, showing where the extremes are in the graph, but I think as you look at this graph, you should be aware that the income range axis
Yes.
is a non-linear distribution of data.
Yes.
So that even though, so these small, as you get further in the lower values,
yes.
you have smaller values, but that's because you're spreading it out, or whoever did this graph is spreading it thinner.
Yes.
Just understand that if these were equal distributions,
Yes.
I'm still agreeing with the main point, but that at the lower end would be, it would look taller.
Well, you know what's very interesting? So yes, it is linear.
It's non-linear.
This is on the, yes, okay, so this is on the housing toolbox, which is on the MHP site, Mass Housing site, Mass Housing Partnership site. And if you go in there, which I could pull it up right here, but they will tell you exactly what the numbers are for each one of
Yeah,
these.
I'm just in the way it's represented, it does thin out the smaller numbers because they've used a nonlinear x-axis.
Yes, but they also are showing the percentages.
You see the percentages on the left, right?
The percentage, yeah,
Right,
but that
but-
percentage is a percentage of a smaller
We got
number.
a data expert,
Yeah.
we got a
I mean,
data expert right here. We have a
Even
data
is
expert.
correct, right? Like if you add up these percentages, you're looking at like 6, 5, I mean.
Should come close to
Take the
100.
bottom 5 bars and that is now looking more like 15-ish percent.
Yes.
Yes.
You can, with a graph, you can make anything look.
And that's what they've done. They've stretched it, but
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah,
the main
yeah.
point that there's a distribution that is weighted towards the top end. I agree with
Yes.
that. I just think that
Yes.
the way this graph has been shown, it enhances that because they've thinned out the small.
Well, but the
So
other thing
in other
that I
words,
wanna
if the
point-
first category was like the fifth row where it said 5 well, from zero to 25,000.
Exactly, they're in $25,000
Consolidate that
increments.
whole thing together. You get a
Exactly.
better view of the,
It'd be more representative.
yeah. This comes right from the
I'm going to
census.
say that when I work with people, so I work with people on both a housing rehab program and a rental assistance. And I actually use these categories all day long in my office, okay? Because I have people who are at $5,000 income.
That's right.
Coming into my office, and I have people at $12,000 income coming into my office. And I do have the homeowners that are at these incomes, okay? I put furnaces in their houses, I put roofs on their houses because they own a house, but they can't afford to do anything
absolutely.
about it. But what I do think this shows is as those houses sell, they're drawing more and more to the high income earner, earner that's buying them up.
Well, you can't qualify unless you have a high income. You can't buy an $800,000 house unless you have a qualified income. It's mathematically,
800,000.
unless you have the cash, and that's even, different.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do have some other handouts that I'm gonna go. So one of the things that the state has been doing, because they're losing their workforce. I'm sorry.
Yeah, some of them.
Everyone,
Yep,
Alicia,
got it.
They're
please, Alicia
losing
has the
the
floor.
workforce, and they have asked, they put in the MBT planning, the MBT, what's the?
MBTA.
Community.
MBTA, but what is
it's
the title of it?
It's the,
I can't remember either. What is it called?
The one before that, before was MBTA, was something else.
yeah, they
Yeah.
call it.
Transit oriented.
Yeah,
The transit orient, yes.
Yeah.
This is our picture of that. And if you look down, the density in that area, oh, sorry, thank you, this one, okay. If you look there, the density in this area, which is our MBTA zone,
It's the 1 mile radius around the MBTA zoning.
Yeah.
yes, is only 2.2 units per acre.
Yeah, good point.
And what they're really looking for is 15 units per acre. And because part of that zone is actually the train station, as you can see right down in here,
It actually skews it higher.
we need it to be even higher than that if we're going to actually get to that 15 units in the zone
So,
per
actually-
acre.
Well, that's the zoning, but
That's the zoning, but
Yes.
based on the form-based code, West Air Village and the downtown park, because of the density allowed within those zones, we now do meet that 15. We're well above
For the zoning, but
For the
now
zoning.
we need to start doing the building.
Correct. Oh, correct. Yes.
Yes.
And so
I just want to make sure that everyone understands there's two different things that we're saying there.
you began by saying that housing is more than housing, because you talked about all the other knock-on effects. And I just want to point out with this slide here, that getting that density is not just a nice thing for housing justice. That is the way that you construct an active downtown. The reason our downtown is dead is because of the lack of density in that area. The only thing that's going to change that and turn that around is adequate foot traffic to support business. And the only way you get the adequate foot traffic is by increasing the density. So I mention this as to say that yes, housing is the number one consideration in housing justice, but it's also related to the other dominant issues in our town.
Economy and health and human.
Yes.
I mean,
Health and you, yep.
so when we have a rental assistance program that is really very interesting, we give for 12 grants a year, we give $500 a month to families. And we've had it in place now for over 3 years. And the stories that I get from the families about how just changing their rent by $500 changes the whole dynamic of the household.
Absolutely.
And it is remarkable. And so that goes to, how do we stop the inflation? How do we stop the high rents? How do we stop that? And you can go back to the economic, let's start building units, and that's what the state is talking to us about. But as I'm doing this research over and over again, they're not just talking about building. They're really talking about, sorry, I didn't.
That's okay, I moved it for you.
Thank you. They're also talking, increased density, particularly around mass transit. Increase available housing for moderate and workforce. And in particular, increase rental housing. And what you do when you increase the lower income housing and rental housing is you change that bottom rung of the ladder. And once you take the pressure off that, it really, instead of the trickle down, it's the push up, okay? It makes a really big difference. And
Economics doesn't work.
so the thing, yes, and so the thing that I'm just suggesting is, as you look at these projects, we really do need more rental housing in the lower end. And that will make a big difference, and more density. And just if you keep that in mind, you're actually changing not just the housing or the building, you're changing the whole economy, and you're also changing the health of families, and you're changing, when families are healthy and not stressed, you also change the children going to the schools.
Oh, yeah.
You're changing all of those things. And when the housing, we're going to go back, when the housing changes, you change, wait. Sorry. You change that 45%, that inflation number. And that's my big, does anybody want to have any questions on that? I got a handout for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have something, but I'll let Nathan was there first. And
So this is, here, pass this around, pass the whole thing around. Just go all the way around.
Yeah, I would
Sorry. This is from, this is from our two senators, and this is a breakdown of some more numbers on what's happening in housing. And if you see, the annual household income needed to afford a 2-bedroom rental home is $93,000 and $268. 93,268. So,
Is that even possible?
well, it's possible, there's, two working,
At 93, if you had $93,000 to buy a two-bedroom house?
No, this is for a
to
rent.
a two-bedroom house.
this is,
If you want to rent a house for $3,500 a month, up to $3,000, well, that's what it costs to rent a house these days.
yeah.
Yeah.
Equates out to something like that. That's
I would like to make a
35%, right?
Okay, make a point.
10 times 3 is 36,000 would be 35% of 93.
This MBTA zone, this is a great graphic. A couple of slides ago, it says we have, when you get to 15 units per acre, right? As a unit is a dwelling unit.
Dwelling
So
unit.
it could be more than one bedroom.
Yes.
And there's 923. That's a 7X. Great that we're zoned for it, and I understand that, and want to see more development in that zone particularly. 7X, that's 6,000 for residents, maybe 9, depending upon the size of a dwelling unit.
No, but Nathan, I've heard you say it's a goal.
It's a goal.
We want to go from
just saying.
8,000 to 12,000 people, right? I've heard.
The goal I've stated.
No, wait, hold on a second. So, no, that's cool. But I want to say that even if you say, wow, it's 7X, that's a lot. Yes and no. 7 times is a lot. However, when I want you to imagine in your head, you're driving and think about the different kinds of neighborhoods you go through, and you realize that with different structures, you can get to 7X pretty darn fast.
Yeah. There's not enough land.
That's
That's not true.
It is
Go
true.
ahead.
This is from the presentation that we had at the CPTC,
Yeah.
the one that we did. So at that presentation, this was something that they specifically talked about. That yes, when you look at the law that they're putting forth and what should be built in these communities, the ability, like the 15 units per acre within the 1 mile radius, it is just a possibility of being built. When you look at the numbers based on the property, based on the values, based on everything, which they actually showed us in this presentation, that they say, let's say 3,000 units can be built, right, in their location. In actuality, it's going to probably be only 800, 900 units that actually get built based on the property value, based on the property location, the zoning requirement, like the zoning of the property, just how size. So, yes, when we think about it, based on the letter of the law, based on what it says, 15 units per acre, it's a large number. But in actuality, when you put the law into the properties that exist on what we have, it's not going to be anywhere near the intended amount.
I got a couple.
Can I? So, could we move this back to the goal solution slide?
Well, I wanted to use that slide. I'll use that.
We can go back. I got to ask the $1 million question,
Yes.
and this is for Danny as well, and anyone else. What tools does the planning board have to help move the town toward these goals? What do we got? Now I know we have the table of uses.
So
Annette, I'm opening it up.
This is actually something that the working group has actually been is
Okay.
really focused on.
I would figure.
And from my point of view, our first step that we did at the last town meeting was the first
Big step.
Yeah.
the first punch to combat density in a way, because now we're allowing duplexes by right, and we are allowing multifamily within the A1 and A2 zone. That is a huge change in the context of what properties are out there that could be changed to developed into a duplex, into multifamily. It increased, I think that is our big attack on density and increasing our inventory to try to affect little a affordable units. You flood the market with more inventory. The more inventory there is.
That first rung.
Yes.
Yeah.
The more inventory you have, then your numbers aren't theoretically spiking up because there's not a fight for all those, for the very few.
Right, because you've
units.
increased supply against demand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, so that's one way that we're combating it. And I mean, I think the other way we're combating it, which is something that we'll get into next, is also the inclusionary housing portion, which is our way of how we provide more affordable, big A affordable SHI units through to the town, so that we increase the ability for people who are low or moderate income to have those units that are, you know, at a lower cost for rental or even buying.
So can I just point out, we were talking about how, you know, how many units get built. And a year ago, we had DMG on the table. The Deluxe over in Groton had a gigantic 40B that I think was also going to be rental.
It's done. They've started.
They have started?
Yeah, it's
Because I
done.
heard that,
It's done.
yeah. And I had heard that they,
It's done.
okay, it's still going through?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. And then we've got that IBM
200
property
units.
in Littleton.
Yeah.
And we have our NOAA property, which is all affordable, which is only 106 units. If just those units came online,
Yeah.
you would see, it just would work out to be, what, how many is
200
IBM?
plus, and my IBM's,
Yeah,
it could be
IBM's
1,000. I
200.
mean, that's crazy over there.
That thing is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's, I don't know if that's gonna go. That's,
Yeah, that one's sounding like it's a little bit.
Groton's
If I
over
may,
200.
to clarify your question, what does the town have to do within the town's boundaries? And could I even specify close into that MBTA zone?
Can you,
What tools do we have for
Which
the
one?
MBTA zone?
so you see I want to concentrate on what Jonathan, and I'm going to be the negative.
This one?
See this first sentence? No, your thing. Increased, go back to the, increased density around our mass transit station. Now go to the chart, go to the graph,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why that's impossible. Just look at the chart.
This
No,
graph?
the
No,
map.
this one. Okay.
The map. So look at that, okay? You can't use any of that gray.
I
That's
know.
like 2/3 right there. It's out of the picture. All these house lots, one of them is occupied by people, some are in this room, okay, are within that district. Those aren't going to turn into multifamilies. You're down to a small density, which is basically form-based code district.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we can't get that push beyond a tiny distance in downtown. And that has to, for that to work, the concept of the, not the overwhelming concept, but what was the overwhelming concept, but not now, I should say, was it was going to be a mixed use. It was going to be retail on the first floor and apartments above. That could be wrong. It may, for us to get that combination, we need a lot of parking for both type of uses. So what we're really talking about here in this group and in the working group is apartments. We're not talking about mixed use.
No, you're talking
But
about.
most of our zoning is tied to mixed use. That's the preferential, that's the graphic that's shown, that's the preferential language, that's the whole works, because of the concept, the old concept, that you can put a lot of people into downtown, they'll walk to the retail, they'll do their shopping, they do all that stuff. They don't need a car, the whole concept. But when I look at the MBTA thing, are they talking mixed use there?
So, just quickly, our form-based code does allow just apartments.
I know it does.
No, no,
You know how many arguments I already had on that?
I know. And that is something that Charlie and I have already discussed well, and we're both in agreement that you don't have to
I know
do a
that.
commercial. But yes, I understand where you're coming from, the commercial portion of it, because what you're asking for is you want the retail commercial use there so that people are using it, so that it's
Yeah.
walkable and everyone's,
Vibrant
you have a
downtown,
vibrant
walking around,
downtown.
stuff like
Mixed primary uses.
But in today's, when you look at it in today's snapshot and the time frame in that we're in, people aren't really opening retail businesses like that. They're not, the cost of overhead and you're not building new buildings, going into new retail spaces. You're going into a B level, C level because you want lower costs on those. So A level, which is what you would be considering this is new, commercial retail space, is not, in my opinion, what we as a town need right now. I think what we need is bring the people, like Jonathan says, bring the people, build the apartments.
Yeah.
And then downtown by itself, by the fact of having the people down there, having the foot traffic, those buildings that are all downtown, you're going to see the possibility of those owners saying, oh, well, now I could sell to another developer who's going to clean this up and build another retail, something better, or even upgrade all the buildings, clean it up. Like, that's when you're going to have the property owners to have an incentive to sell. I think,
Or to upgrade.
I think right now there is no incentive for them to do that because there's not as much foot traffic right now.
Foot traffic.
Yeah, but the geography, we're penalized by geography here.
Correct.
So most of the zoning changes that we talk about, I agree with Danny 100%, but I want to back on the fact that we got the big first step done. But I can tell you that I went to meetings with other boards during that discussion, and I went with Janet, and we spoke to other boards, and Danny was there, and there were people at those other boards who were doing mathematical calculations, telling us that our density in this town is already higher than all our neighboring towns, and they're opposed to more density. So we still don't have a universal concept amongst the boards in town that density is the best solution, is what I'm getting at.
Well, but this is the argument about talking about what happens when you don't have housing for your population. And what happens is inflation, and what happens is a society that is not quite stable.
Yeah, no, I agree with all what we're doing. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise, but I can tell you that there's opposition.
Just to touch on that, sorry, just to touch on that.
You go first.
The reasoning behind that is because Ayer is such a small space geographically.
Yeah.
And there's already so many people, but 49% of our town is open space. Mm-hmm. So you also need to put that into context. Yeah. So, like, yes, when you look at density per square mile, we're always going to be high because we're a smaller town. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean just because we're higher up there that we're way more dense and way more out there than any other town around us.
No, there's been a lack of building for
quite a long
40,
time.
50 years.
Yeah. Great discussion.
This is fabulous, and this is exactly why I invited you, is so that we could have this conversation and have these ideas out there. I just wanted to bring out this point. We all know the movie Miracle on 34th Street. And if you look at it, one side of the story is it's about Santa Claus. But there's another story hidden in there. It's a story of this young girl and her single mom moving from an extraordinary apartment on 34th Street. And then joy, the conclusion is they move into a single-family residence in suburbia. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring this up, I remember watching this as a kid, and I'm going, are they crazy? I'd give my teeth to have an apartment in Manhattan like that. My God, I mean, what do you... But my point, the propaganda in the United States since the end of the Second World War is that the fulfillment of our dream is a single-family home. And part of what we're up against is decades of that attitude, and we're beginning a process of raising people's awareness of, you might want to have neighbors, and here's why. And that maybe this model isn't for everybody. Maybe it's not even the best, I'm talking about the single family ownership. Maybe that's not the answer. And that we found, now we have almost a century, 80 years of evidence now that, it's a more complicated picture. But I'm really grateful for you to get this on here. And I think it makes, I'm not trying to cut you off, but this makes a great segue to the working group stuff.
And just quickly on that, just to touch on what you were saying right there is, I don't know if everyone saw that video that I sent out that Jeff had sent me initially on the future of development, and that's really what we need to start seeing. That type of development is something that I think eventually we will get to. I think over the years of planning, we've learned at this point that single-family homes isn't what is working for us, and I think it's going to take a while to kind of get that brainwashed out of people's head where, oh, I need to live in a single-family home. I don't want an apartment. I don't like that stigma. But eventually, I think we will get to the point where there's diversity in housing types is going to be a good thing.
Well, it is a good thing, yeah.
It is a good thing, but
People will see it.
people will see it as a good thing.
But that's
They do when they
actually,
live in a condo in New York at the top floor. I mean, they see that as a good thing. But
one of the things I was looking at, because I was really looking at, I've been looking at the transfer of wealth, and there's a lot of different reasons for that happening right now. But the transfer of wealth, how do you build and ultimately the loss of the middle class, okay? The middle class is, there's more people on the low income end, and there's fewer people on the high income end, but people are being siphoned off from the middle class and ending up in the low income end. And what we really want is a healthy middle class that has some financial stability. We want it for everybody. And how do you make it, how do you set the table for that to happen for whoever? And I think you create enough stable housing. I'm not the oldest person in the room. I'm looking at you again. But you used to be this is gonna sound like an old person statement, but you went to school and you could pay for your apartment and you could work part-time and you could,
you have plenty of money.
And have plenty of money. Because your apartment costs, $300 or $400 a month. And now, and there are other charts. It took me a long time to figure out which ones to bring to you and which ones not, because there's a lot more data out there. And there's some really good data. Anybody who wants to come by and, or I can send out emails on any of it too. But there's great data on this, and I think that if we just change some of the way we think, and I think this town has done a wonderful job of embracing this conversation.
Me too.
So,
Alicia, thank you so much.
thanks for having me, guys.
I just had one comment that I wanted to, this is not perhaps a planning board, but for those of you that are involved on these working groups and stuff. So this whole thing is anchored by the MBTA and the train station. And so I take the commuter rail about 3 days a week. And from Ayer to North Station, that is an hour and 6 minutes. And that's just like you get on, that doesn't count door-to-door time or anything. And I'm curious if working groups, if the town has thought about advocating for better schedules, more reliable services. I think Julie shared an article in the Boston Globe where it's like the Department of Transportation secretary lives in Shirley and doesn't take the train because of how inconvenient it is. It's stunning. And
Yes, that is
I just when I moved to town, we had multiple express trains to choose from.
Exactly.
And now we lost that with the pandemic. And so there's only one express train schedule that you can choose from. And if you work like a 9 to 5, it doesn't fit.
You get there too early.
Yeah. And so if you want to, be in downtown Boston at 9 a.m., which is what I tried to do, you can't take that train because then you show up to work 45 minutes early after you've left your house at 6 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
So if anybody at all is on like a working group, this is something that I would definitely advocate for, because I think it is an economic engine, right? Like if a developer can say, hey, from Ayer, that express train will get you to downtown 9 a.m. 45 minutes, which it does. It's magnificent. It's just inconveniently timed.
I'll send you some white papers on it that would lift the MBTA out of the 1970s.
Yeah.
So I in relation to
would
what
like
you
to-
said,
Yeah, no, it's actually.
I wish-
Jonathan did raise this to me about the
I wish that the collective response to the MBTA zoning, instead of being, we don't want to do it, is instead say to all the towns collaborated and one voice said to the state, Okay, fine, this is what we gotta do, here's what you gotta do, fix the damn trains. Fix the trains. Because nothing else that the state could do would have as powerful an impact on what we're talking about in the density patterns of our towns than fixing those darn trains.
Yeah.
And one of the things that should be pushed is not everything is an economic decision as far as, oh, it costs too much. Some things in our society are what we do because it's the cost that needs to happen to have a livable society. And whether that's building some affordable units or whether that's fixing the mass transit, all of those things are things that we got to say, no, these are priorities for us. This is where we want to spend our money.
Excellent. Thanks, Alicia.
I just want to add, I'm sorry, but I am going to add it, if that's okay. But as our representative on the Community Preservation Board, I just want to say I'm proud of our town for voting in and doing community preservation funding, right? And matching with the state and having that abundance of funds available to do things and to watch over the past few years as the Housing Trust, which you're mentioning, and it's really helpful to people. And the things we voted on as a town and as a community have really made some huge impacts. And I hope we can continue to support your work, Alicia, because it's awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks
Julie.
for having me, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
And so I'll,
Do you want these
I'm not too tired
extras?
now, but Jonathan gets
Thank you.
tired.
this is the working group, kind of just an
Summary. Working group.
Working summary?
I won't get too into it, but I gave you guys the draft, the cleaned up version that we have.
Okay, thank you. That's what this.
Yeah. So the working group has been working through revamping our inclusionary housing bylaw, and it's been completely from beginning to end rewritten whole. It no longer reads the way it used to. We've changed the biggest thing I'll talk about on this is, and as it would be good for you guys to read about it because this will be coming back to you guys for presentations for town meeting and all that. So this basically what we're doing here would be our current bylaw reads as 20%, and then you can lower it down to a 1 in 7, which is based on the fact that it's above 10%, the MBTA zoning comes into that whole issue of you can only have up to 10%, and then there's a feasibility study if you go any higher. So we've been discussing about lowering that number to meet that 10%. Because over the 7 years that this has been enacted, the current one, it hadn't really been used. There's no projects that had triggered it. And so what we did was we used one that was from Salisbury that MHP uses specifically as their template to go around to other towns and say, this is how we would like our inclusionary housing bylaws to be written. And so what we did was we took that as a template, made some changes, made some pretty big changes that I see for the good compared to what they had before. And
They're meeting Salisbury.
And so the biggest things, we'll talk about them, is there's 3 different ways you can provide towards the affordable housing. So basically you can provide on-site units. So if you have between 5 and 19 units, you can provide on-site, you can payment in lieu, or you can provide them off-site. And so the 3 differences are, so the on-site is you're just providing the affordable SHI unit on-site. In lieu is based on, this would allow them to build all market rate, but for every market rate that they sell, they'd make a payment that goes towards a contribution towards the Affordable Housing Trust. And there's a chart in there that kind of shows you what that cost would be. And so it's under 10.37. That kind of gives you kind of a breakdown as what that would fall under. So it's 400,000, less than that, it's $10,000. So for more than 400,000, but up to 600,000, it's 2.5% of the sale price of the market rate unit. And then as it goes up, the percentages goes up. And so what this does kind of is there's an incentive to kind of allow the developers to, if they don't want to provide the affordable unit because they don't, there's a lot of other steps that go with it, they don't have to. They can provide the payment in lieu, and that percentage would go straight to the Affordable Housing Trust. And as that builds up, they can then later on use it as going out for an RFP on a purchase on land, or work with NOAA, someone like we did with Fitchburg Road. So this provides different mechanisms of providing affordable housing, and not just specifically just providing only the one unit, the units that were required. Because the way we had it written, the payment in lieu was like,
It was what, 80%?
it was like 80%, which is like $275,000. So no developer's like, I don't want to, hey, why would I do that? And then also there was kind of a way that we weren't triggering it, because this project would only be triggered under ours if it was multifamily.
Right.
And the way it was written was that it would only be triggered if there was a multifamily project. The way we have it written here is there's multiple ways for it to trigger, and you could have it through a subdivision, and it could be a regular site plan review project where there's multiple dwelling units, but they're not technically multifamily. It's a combination of the total amount of dwelling units on a property. So if you have more than 5 units on a property, even if they are single-family homes like A&Rs, you're triggered here. And either you can provide the affordable unit, or you can provide the payment in lieu. And what'll happen is those smaller developers that do a 5-lot subdivision or a 5-lot A&R, just single-family homes, they're not going to be burdened with having to provide that unit. They can just do the payment in lieu. And it's like, to most developers, that's a drop in the bucket to them.
Right.
Just based on my experience and what I've done in this field. When we were building houses and we knew that there was an affordable component, we were like, we're going to build that into the number. We already know that that's coming in. Let's just do it. It's easier. We don't have to provide the affordable housing. But then you have those other developers that will provide the affordable housing unit. So this is going to provide different avenues for different developers, and it opens it up to more projects being triggered, which will in theory trigger more affordable housing to be built, because you'll either get the SHI unit on site, you'll get it off site, or you'll get the payment in lieu, which then the affordable housing will be able to use to later on do a bigger project. So we're still kind of working through this. We have another meeting on the 19th with the working group to kind of go through, some final edits. And I think for town meeting, we may be able to get this ready for it.
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Take some time to read through it.
Can I just?
Pretty good. Yeah, can.
Yeah, so just back up a second.
Sure.
I think the important part, and I'm saying this a lot for Kathleen as well, we're basically taking a whole section out of our zoning, complete removal of that inclusionary housing section, and replacing the whole section with a whole new language. But the two principles you focused on were, in the past, we only even generated the need for inclusionary housing if it was a multifamily development.
Right.
So it never generated on subdivisions. Exactly. It never generated on, I guess it would be apartments would do it because that's multifamily, and so forth. But we're trying to broaden that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying basically is if a regular subdivision comes in here with like 8 lots on this thing, that's going to be more than 5. So
Correct.
they are in the spot they have to. What if someone comes in with? Did you just say that if someone came in with 4 of that, are you exempt if it's only 4? Do you not even have to pay?
Correct.
So 4 is nothing.
Correct, it's nothing.
So someone can come in with a small builder can come in, build a couple of houses, builds 2 duplexes, he's okay, he's not gonna get burdened by the
Correct.
thing. We still get some housing out of it, but we won't be pushing into the affordable. But any combination of 5.
Yeah.
you're automatically included.
Correct.
That's the real innovation.
And the incentive in the little a form is that in that chart, the higher your price is of that market rate, the higher your payment in lieu is. So it almost gives them the incentive to try to keep it at a lower rate, so they're not making as high of a payment.
That's we hope.
We hope.
We
Yes,
hope.
in theory, it's something that we talked about that I think in theory would be a little bit more of an incentive.
Awesome.
That is tremendous.
Thank you.
Nathan, any comments?
Not in public.
So, the July 9th minutes, everyone had a chance to, got the edits to you. Thank you, Heather. Do I have a motion to approve? I make a motion that we approve the July 9th, 2024 minutes as amended by Jonathan Kranz.
Seconded.
Wait, Jeff did provide comments.
You did?
Yes, you did.
Oh, but did everyone get to see them?
They were sent out to everybody, yes.
May I amend my motion? Yes. I'd like to amend my motion to reflect not only my edits, but Jeff Tillotson's edits as well.
Seconded.
Thank you. Ken?
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Abstain.
And Jonathan, the chair says aye. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was a great meeting.